1,000 hands applaud tonight. I sing my song, my star shines bright. I stop and smile, I take my bow, I leave the stage, and then somehow backstage.
This is a show business story with, as they say, a glittering cast. But it doesn't take place in London, Paris, New York or Las Vegas. It takes place here, in Batley, a wool town in the West Riding of Yorkshire, a long way from the glamorous world of stars and neon lights. But one local resident, former fairground barker and small-time bingo operator James Corrigan, noticed that Batley lies at the heart of an urban sprawl that embraces 3 million people. 3 million people starved of entertainment. Corrigan was born into a family of travelling showmen. He never went to school, but he inherited his grandfather's flair for showmanship, which was to manifest itself in Batley in 1966. With his own modest savings and a huge loan which he somehow arranged with the brewery, he wanted to build a theatre and a club combined, which would seat 1,500 people. It was, to say the least, a crazy dream, made even more bizarre by the fact that the chosen site had once been part of a sewerage works. The locals had heard of the saying, where there's muck there's brass, but this was ridiculous.
People used to come out in the cast from Leeds because they thought I was insane.
The bachelors were booked to be the opening attraction before a brick had been laid.
And we were asked to come up to Batley to lay the foundation stone for a new club called Batley Variety Club.
A mere 14 weeks later, Batley Variety Club opened its doors to the public, who paid £5 bob apiece to see the show. Few of the artists who were booked knew what to expect or even how to find the place.
I think one of the amazing things about the club was that it was situated in such a funny place, really, when you think about it. If someone had said to me Batley 2 years before I went there, I don't think I'd actually have... I'm sure I hadn't actually heard of the place. It seemed to be absolutely in the middle of no man's land.
And the thought of playing at Batley, you know, to a lot of stars, they used to think, well, where is Batley? You know, it seemed like out in the sticks, up in the frozen north.
I didn't even know it was in Yorkshire. I thought it really was north of Liverpool.
Of course, to try and find Batley is something else. I mean, I'll never forget when the first time I drove up there, I'd actually gone past it and I couldn't figure out why, because people had told me it was such a big place, and then somebody said, well, just turn round and go back the way you come. You can't miss it. It's on the right-hand side. I already had missed it, of course.
And when I pulled in, it was the most unimposing place I think I'd ever seen. I was expecting to see a big front and all that, but it was a very low building, like a low factory area. And that concealed what happened inside. Inside it went down in a big dip.
When I saw the place, the building, I thought, my God, what have I gotten myself into?
And of course, when I got there, it looked rather austere. It looked like a fortress or something on the outside.
The fact that there was a slag heap at the back of the club really didn't matter. What mattered was when you went inside the place.
So it was a theatre and a club combined, and that was the idea of Batley Variety Club. I didn't realise it would take off as it did do. He took a tiny little town and put it on the map of the world, bringing the greatest stars of the world to his home.
Early in 1968, James Corrigan took a plane to New York and returned with a signed contract for the legendary Louis Armstrong. In June of that year, Satchmo played 2 weeks, and it was this engagement alone that gave Batley Variety Club a unique reputation.
And I felt, as a responsible person in show business, I'd make it my business to let all my friends in show business know that this was on the map. This Batley Variety Club was here to stay. And they would do themselves a lot of good by working it. I, in fact, rang Engelbert Humperdinck, that was sort of toying with the idea. And I said, yeah, you really enjoyed Engelbert.
But when we first heard about Batley and a nightclub, it was, well, we didn't really know what to expect. Driving through the narrow streets, trying to get to the place called Batley Variety Club. And when you finally get there and you see that it is a nightclub in somewhat Vegas style, I think it's rather wonderful to find it in the middle of an industrial area, as the same way as you would find Vegas in the middle of the desert.
Las Vegas was the next port of call for James Corrigan. He went there specifically to try and book his own favourite singer, Dean Martin.
I spoke to his manager and I said, is what are you offering my boy, Dean? So I said, £45,000. Well, he didn't let me say for a week or a day or 3 weeks, but he just says, well, Dean won't get out of bed to go pee for, but he put it more crudely than that, for £45,000.
While Mr. Martin languished in bed, Cilla Black and her husband on holiday in Capri sold the idea of working at Batley Variety Club to no less a person than our Gracie.
But we got talking, and Gracie showed me the step where her dad had built, which I thought was absolutely marvellous. You know, oh, my dad built that. Then she says, here, Bobby, they've asked me to do this Batley Variety Club. I mean, what do you think I should do? I mean, I know all the latest songs. I know all the, thank you very much for the entry. I
have to look at the titles. I think, well, this will be all right. This will be all right. Let me see. I'm working in Batley now. They're north of England people. They're my people, so I'll sing that one, shall I? Do that one. A bit of waltzing. Now, I won't do too much. I'll just do a chorus. No, so they keep asking for that blinking aspidestra. I couldn't sing that again because it's not funny anymore. It's had it.
And I remember Bobby saying to her, well, Gracie, you should do it. She said, well, I don't know what frock to wear. And Bobby, my husband, Bobby, he just said, well, Gracie, be yourself, like you've always been. Wear your frock. But I don't know what to ask for. I mean, I don't know what to earn. I don't know how much to ask for, Bobby.
I'm Maggie, the Queen of the Ragtime, another chorus. In dresses to dance or dine, I can look prude, enticing, or rude. But there's no other chassis like mine. It's a bit rude, isn't it? I can be prim or seductive, simple or pure she. With a sweet, newlywed look, or a please come to bed look. I'm Maggie the bottle, that's me. I think Boris would kill me if I sang that one. I can't do that.
And I thought, I can't believe this woman's actually saying to my Bobby, well, what do I ask for, Bobby? And I remember Bobby saying, who was very courteous, saying, well, Miss Fields, if I may call you Gracie. And she said, oh, I love, oh, yes, love. You just ask for what Satchamo, he's been there 2 weeks ago. And we thought, well, if he can get it, Gracie, darling, so can you.
But when this lady arrived, this elderly lady, I thought, my God, you know, she can't possibly perform because she was leaning on my arm and I had to help her up the steps and so forth. But that night when she appeared on stage, she had lost 40 years.
I feel I couldn't do it every night, no, not every week. Not give a smash-bang performance, because during Batley, when I was there, it was bed and work all day. I had to be resting and be relaxing, getting my hair done nearly every night. You get worried and bothered, you start perspiring, and your hair goes straight, bang to the hairdressers before you go to work, you know. It's a lot of a thing.
The strain of working late-night cabaret told on other performers, too.
Announce me, I'm going to sing. You're not, are you? Why not? We're doing so well.
Morecambe and Wise were in the middle of a sellout week at Batley when Eric Morecambe suffered a serious heart attack.
I got a bit of a twinge in my arm, and I have to say to Ernie, you know, I don't feel too good. I'll go home tonight. And I stopped a fella in Leeds. I said, do you feel you could take me to a hospital? I don't feel very well. And he's obviously said to the fella behind the counter, he said, Eric Morecambe's out there, and he's not very well. Could I have, and the fella wouldn't let him have a chair as far as I can make out. So I walked in, and the fella looked at me and went, oh, yeah. And he says to all the boils and the cuts and the slashes in the corner there, in the outpatient step, hey, 'tis him. Yeah, it's true. So I'm lying down on a stretcher there. The next thing I know, I'm being injected. This Walter Butterworth is sat with me. He says, my mates won't believe this. He says, and this is the exact words he used, he says, will you do us a favour? I said, what? He said, before you go, will you sing me?
At the start of 1969, with the club less than 2 years old, Corrigan and his wife Betty sought help to run the booming business. They turned to a Leeds theatrical agent called Derek Smith.
I contacted Johnny Mathis, who hadn't been in this country for 9 years. We brought him over, or I brought him over, I contacted him, and brought him in February, in winter. It was a really cold day in February 1971, and he was sensational.
I think I was very surprised that I had such fun. I decided to get myself involved in the whole process that was going on there.
After the success of Johnny Mathis, I thought, well, you know, we would really look for some of the oldies. And we got Neil Sedaka.
So I think that Batley Variety Club was a very important place for me. It was a stepping stone. It was a very good experience. The audiences were marvelous, despite what Elton John said. He said, oh, how could you play Batley Variety Club? I mean, my goodness me.
The Everly Brothers, again, they hadn't been in for years. We contacted them.
We were support act for the Everly Brothers. And they did a version of Bye Bye Love, which was very, very slow. And the audience didn't quite know what to do. I mean, they didn't really go down very well. And after the show, Jim Corrigan went backstage and said to them, listen, fellas, you know, I know you're into country and western music and all that, but you've got to play your hits. And they didn't really want to do it, but eventually persuaded them to go in the next afternoon and re-rehearse the songs that we all know so well that they'd forgotten almost. And the next night they went out and did Bye Bye Love, Wake Up Little Susie and all the old hits and stormed the place.
Danny LaRue. I used to go down to London 3-4 times a year, and Danny was appearing at the Palace Theatre in London 8-9 times a week and doing his club in Hanover Square. Afterwards, doing a show at 1 o'clock in the morning. I used to have this little corner table. He used to always sit me in this little corner table, and he used to always tell the audience, it was an intimate little club, about 150, 200 people, and he used to say, the man from Batley's in again. He's here, the man from Batley. They're trying to get me.
Leading up to my stint, as we call them in our business, at Batley, it took 4 years. Not because I was being difficult, because I was worried. I was the first artist to take a full production, as one would do in a theatre, with 16 boys and girls and probably 150 costumes, plus sound technicians and lighting technicians, which had to make it fairly expensive, so much so that the Daily Mail worked out what Batley had to sell. I was very intrigued that apparently it was something like 1.5 million pints of beer and 400,000 chicken in the baskets and cod and chips. I've never really worked out my salary like that before, but it was interesting.
Of course, the goddess of Batley was Shirley Bassey. And Derek Smith was always telling me what a great attraction she was there, which of course she was, because she didn't make all that many personal appearances in this country. And she followed me in. I arrived Saturday evening for the Saturday evening show, and she was opening the following Sunday. And I opened the dressing room door, and I tripped over these trunks that were full of musical arrangements. And I said, Derek came in, I said, Derek, what's all this about? I said, oh, there's Shirley. Because he used to talk like that. He probably still does.
The goddess of Batley was Shirley.
I said, well, Shirley isn't on till Sunday. I'm on tonight. They're in my way, you know. So, all right, well, I'll get rid of them. But Shirley's on so much, she won't like me moving these, you know. So I said, I don't care what Shirley wants, move them, because they're in my way. And then I went in the other room, and there was sort of a big flat, what looked like a piece of wood, you know, full-length piece of wood in paper. I said, Derek, what's this? There's all this stuff over the place. It's full-length, no, for Shirley, you see. So I said, oh, well, stick it up, you know, stick it up on the wall where it belongs. But we used to laugh about things like that, you know, and I used to, if anything went wrong, I used to say to Derek Smith, you know, this wouldn't happen to Shirley, would it?
I remember one night she came on stage and she was singing, and nobody else noticed, but one of the musicians wasn't playing the right notes. And then she did the show, the taps closed, curtains closed, and then she came out and threw her arms around the conductor, what she normally does, and very happy with the applause, because she got a tremendous applause. And then she came through the curtains, and she knew which musician was playing the wrong notes, and she made a run at him. The poor chap, he dropped, I think it was a trumpet, he dropped his trumpet, run out of the back doors, that's the stage doors at the back, the entrance, and Shirley Bassey was after him on the car park trying to get hold of him. I'm sure she would have killed him.
And as far as chasing one around the car park, I don't know this story. I really don't. Unless I fancied him, but I don't think it was.
Batley had a special something about it. Eartha Kitt, in 1969, declared her feelings for the town and the people in a television interview.
As a person who comes here to visit Batley and comes to visit England, I can see much more behind, obviously, what you're looking at than you can see. For instance, I don't think you can see the trees for the forest. Now, I can look around Batley on this hillside over there, for instance. Those homes, to me, are absolutely beautiful. I think also that it depends on what kind of people you have in an area, too.
But the something special in the memories of most of the stars was the audiences.
We had tremendous audiences every night. You know, and when I say every night, because I was there 3 weeks at a time. You know.
And I was very happy to find out that they were exactly the same kind of audiences that we used to get in the variety theatres.
There was an electricity. There was something in the air there that you can only get in certain places. If you try to build a building and you try to put that electricity and that atmosphere in it, you'll never ever get it.
It was a wonderful place to play for a comedian because the audiences were right there in front of you. You could almost touch them. And in fact, you did now and again. And they loved to laugh. They loved comedy.
The Yorkshire people would really let you know about it because, thank God, they were nice to me. But I tell you, they're honest, down-to-earth people. And if they didn't like you, they would let you know.
The thing that really did me in was when I went into the hotel in Wakefield prior to the rehearsal in the afternoon. I think it was a Sunday afternoon. And as I came down, I was going out the door. There was this big burly doorman that was there. And he looked me right in the eye and he said, "We'll know tomorrow." I said, "You'll know what tomorrow?" He said, "We'll know if you're any good or not." He said, "Up here, if you're not any good on the night, you don't finish anymore. They send you away."
I was expecting much more the kind of offhand cabaret-type audience who were going to clatter and bang all the way through my set. And in fact, although cabaret audiences tend to clatter and bang a little bit anyway, it wasn't anywhere near as bad as that.
And from the age of about 7 until I was 15, I was quite used to singing in working men's clubs where they were drinking and chatting. And so I was, you know, it took me back a few years, but I was able to cope with that without any problem at all.
I mean, tables about that big, and you saw 8 people with pints of beer like that, you know. And the clinking of glasses was very strange.
But in fact, it is a bit disturbing when you're singing a beautiful ballad like Miss Unites and there's knives and forks going clang, clang all over the place.
But they would close the bar while I was on because that was in my contract. You know. So if you wanted a drink, you had to order just before I went on. And otherwise, while I was on, you had it, you know. You had to die of thirst. But they made sure they didn't because they just stacked them up, you know.
James and Betty forged close personal relationships with many visiting performers. And they, in turn, responded to the drive and enthusiasm which the Corrigans brought to show business.
Jimmy Corrigan, to me, was like a breath of fresh air in show business. He seemed to come into the business when we really needed him.
They were very, very nice to me because I was very young at the time. I can't remember how old I was, probably about 19 or 20.
I must say that Betty and James, right from the off, from the moment we went up there to Batley to lay that foundation stone, everything they did was right.
He was so interested and full of enthusiasm and always coming up with fresh ideas.
And it was different work in Batley, wasn't it? I mean, they looked after you. Even as an opening act, you were made to feel as though you were as part of the establishment and as big as the star what were there.
When we first went to Batley, we drove into the car park, which is free, incidentally, and we drove the car around the back there, and the little guy came up to us with a flat cap on and the roll neck jumper, and he said, "Park it here, lads, be all right here, and I'll look after it for you." "All right, be all right, so, thank you very much." 50 pence. Thank you very much. Incidentally, where can we find James Corrigan? We'd like to meet him. Pleased to meet you, lads. Do you want the 50 pence back? And that was James Corrigan, parking the cars in the car park. You can't believe the man.
The late 60s and early 70s were the heydays for the Corrigans. The cash flowed, the business prospered, and to all observers, both inside and outside show business, James and Betty Corrigan had made it to the very highest level of the nouveau riche society.
From a cottage which Betty's granny owned, they built a luxurious house, complete with swimming pools, bars, sauna baths, you name it, they had it. And plus the 2 Rolls Royces, and the one wasn't good enough, they had to have 2.
I remember sitting and watching I call him a carpenter, I guess it's called a joiner, an old fella that was really a master craftsman that was doing a curving staircase. I've had one done since in my house, and it's nowhere near what was the one done at Corrigan's. But when he finished it, and it was all over with, nobody cared.
Also, Betty liked Capodimonte. The house was covered with Capodimonte.
And this enormous kitchen. I mean, I've got a big kitchen, but theirs was enormous and full of all the latest gadgets, and it was quite fun actually to go and cook.
I remember Vera Lynn, she used to cook, and she was a wonderful cook. I think some of the best meals I've ever had in my life was when Vera Lynn stayed with us at my home.
Chicken dishes and, well, anything they fancied. And I'd cook it in a nice way. I like plenty of herbs and garlic and not too much cream and rich stuff like that. Just plain good cooking, and he enjoyed it very much.
The kid used to cook as well. Eartha, I didn't very well like her meals because she used to like all the meat raw, and I like my meat well done. So whenever Eartha started to cook, I used to disappear and go to a restaurant.
It's the udder. You eat it just like it is now. What is this, salt? You put salt on it. Salt and vinegar. Wait a minute, let me put my packages down. Is this how you do it, with vinegar and all? Like a bit kit? No, I've never had it before. You don't cook it or Do you see us dining on caviar and pheasant with descendants of royalty? Well, with my champagne taste and your beer bottle pocket, I'll be having pheasant while you're dining with the peasants, dunking donuts in a diner without me.
Staying in Batley for a couple of weeks isn't exactly a holiday. The tourist attractions of the town are, to put it mildly, limited.
When you work in a cabaret setup like that, far from London, therefore far away from your friends, what you do at the day is terribly difficult.
We would go horseback riding. They would have horses right on the premises. Or we would go into town and look at antiques. Betty loved antiques.
I played golf with Peter Alice at Moore Allerton Golf Club. And besides playing golf, I had an opportunity to explore the moors in that part of the country, which were exciting. We went to York Minster, which is an ancient ruin.
And we had many, many happy times together, drinking brandy and port and getting a little loaded and falling into the pool. And
the pool, I remember I said, I'm going to go down and have a swim today. And I got down there and it was green. It was all full of algae. The filter hadn't been changed.
Well, I used to go shopping with Mrs. Corrigan.
I remember one incident, I don't know if I should tell this, where Betty Corrigan took me into Leeds, and I was dressed very schlumpy, as we say. And when we got back to the house, she said, oh, I didn't want to say anything, but I was very embarrassed. I didn't want to tell anybody that you were the star attraction this week at my Batley Variety Club, because you looked like a ragamuffin.
Well, James Corrigan said one night, you've got to have fish and chips while you're in Batley, and we know just the place to take you. So when would you like to go? And it's after the show. I said, well, Friday, I think it was, or Saturday. And I got all dressed up. Put my best cocktail dress on, my best high heel shoes, my little mink jacket, and they took me to a fish and chip shop. And I thought they would take me to a restaurant, you know.
The kit used the time to learn some new numbers.
Well, as I leave, I'd like to hear you all sing on Il Climo Batak, on Il Climo Batak, on Il Climo Batak. Oy vey.
There's always a joker in the pack. There's always a cardboard clown.
James Corrigan, Derek Smith and their team were well known for their practical jokes.
I never used to have any music written because I was only a play on a chord and a play off man, and the bands preferred to sort themselves out in that respect. But what happened with me was I had a band call one Sunday and I said, now lads, it's very simple. You play me on, and then when I drop all the cards in the box you go da-da, and then you all go away, come back when I do this trick, and you know, play me off. So they said fine, and they all went away. And that night, in front of 2,000 people, I walked on stage and they played me on. And then I got to the bit and I dropped all the cards in the box, and all the orchestra stood up and went da. And I fell about. The audience didn't know what the hell was going off.
Every date at Batley Variety Club was dealt with in a manner of who's going to top who with gags.
Frank always used to know that James were one for playing tricks and all lads, all nice fun, but when he thought, oh, they're not playing any tricks and my birthday cake ain't blown up, he thought, that's it, I'm safe, till he got back in the dressing room.
And as I opened the door, I had the fright of my life. There were 6 little pigs rolling around the room, squealing and squeaking, and the place was like a dustbin.
They flew out of the I've seen some sprinters in my time, but Frank beat the lot.
I must say, I almost had a heart attack.
I used to do a gag doing impressions where I used to come out from through the middle of the curtains with a boater and a silver cane doing a Frankie Vaughan impression, you know, give me the moonlight, kicking my legs. But actually the silver cane was extended by about 20 feet because there were some chimney sweep rods all coupled together, and on the end of it was a brush, a chimney sweep brush. And I did this all week, and on the Saturday night I came out of the tabs and give me the moonlight, and I got to the edge of the stage and I looked and the brush still hadn't come out. So I went down the steps into the audience and I kept going out, and it was a big club, you know, it must have been, say, 100 feet. And what they'd done, they'd been and borrowed about 400 feet of drainage rods that fitted my cane. So I went down the stairs, up the centre aisle, through the auditorium, with this amazing cane. I thought, well, I'm not going to stop. And I went right through the club, right through the foyer, and I'm on the main Bradford Road. And this cane is coming out and out. And what they'd done, they'd spent about an hour in the car park assembling it. And as I was going through can you imagine the situation, 2,000 people thinking, well, okay, well, we get the gag, but what's happening now? There's about 400 feet of drainage rod being fed through Batley Variety Club. Amazing atmosphere.
One night with the stink bombs, I've seen them used before, but they did something I thought was very, very unique. They put the stink bombs underneath, I think it was the microphone stand, underneath the piano stool leg, and underneath one other thing. I don't know what it was, but they were things where they wouldn't all go off at once because you had to put pressure on whatever it was to make the thing go off. So they went off time released. Like every 15 minutes, you got this horrible rotten egg smell that came wafting by, and I knew they were doing something was going on. I didn't know where it was coming from.
Yeah, wait a minute. As I walked in the dressing room, I arrived, yeah. I opened I couldn't get in, actually, for boxes and boxes of Mars bars, because James found out that I used to wake up in the middle of the night and eat a Mars bar. And he had planned all these Mars bars. Well, I tell you, I had those Mars bars for years and years, and I've never eaten a Mars bar since. I can't look at one in the face. You know.
I went on stage and I turned around to the table to get my Eric Morecambe top hat, and I went in to get the glasses, which are usually inside, and instead of getting hold of the glasses, I got rid of this very mushy, cold hot dog with onions, which surprised me because I didn't usually have them. And
it was that kind of atmosphere there, you know, sort of little practical jokes on each other.
I do a bit in my act where in the middle of a song it changes into a bolero rhythm, and I run off and I jump into a pair of biscuit tins and go out and go and dance out with these biscuit tins on my feet. And Saturday nights were the worst. You'd do a week there and they'd all get the run of your act. On Saturday night I ran behind the tabs, I jumped into these biscuit tins, and the biscuit tins were full of water. And I was up to my knees in water. My suit was ruined, and I was going across the stage going, and the water was slopping over the stage, you know.
There was a character named Freddie Starr. I'm not exactly sure what he did, but before there was one engagement where I followed Freddie Starr, and he did a takeoff on me. He did "I Go Ape." I suppose it's the highest form of flattery. But it wasn't flattering. I was sitting in the audience with Betty and James, and I wanted to hide under the table because it wasn't flattering. So Freddie Starr, wherever you are, I will get you for that. Don't you worry.
Oh, Neil nearly did get me for it because I had to sleep in the same room as him. And he's got this very high-pitched voice, and I never trust a man with a high-pitched voice.
I'll tell you a funny story that happened at Batley. It were in that week. We went in. Do you remember? We were very boisterous.
The magician.
Yeah. There's a fella stood in the wings in this cloak and a top hat. And I walked in, I went, "How are you, pal?" And he went, "Oh, my doves!" My doves. And I killed the dove, it dropped from underneath his cloak, you know.
That's right.
Anyway, he went on like, because he was professional, you see.
And I can look back now and there's some very good laughs with lads because if them dressing rooms could talk.
Oh, when Engelbert was playing there, you know, but I can't talk about it. So I get him in trouble.
The whole time I was there, they didn't play any practical jokes on me, which is probably the reason why I kept going back.
Gradually, the name of James Corrigan became as famous as some of the stars who played Batley. It was in 1972 that he received the supreme accolade.
I had Eamon Andrews tap me on the shoulder and say,
"Oh, thought I'd never get you. Former fairground boy, now international showman. Tonight, this is your life."
Hand in hand with Corrigan's personal reputation, the town of Batley began to be seen in a new light. The comparisons between Batley and Las Vegas, which could once be seen as a publicist's invention, were now beginning to be taken seriously. The Financial Times, not renowned for printing publicity handouts, made the link between the two towns.
Vegas is full of the machines and gambling and bright lights, which you didn't particularly see in Batley. But when you went inside, it had more or less the same atmosphere, and you saw the same caliber of entertainment that you would see in Vegas.
To this day, Neil Sedaka acknowledges that James Corrigan opened the way for him to get to Vegas. He recalls Corrigan's words after his first night at Batley.
I think you're going to be very successful in Batley, and I think you should play Las Vegas, Nevada, because this is really your forte. And here I am, 10 years later, headlining in Las Vegas, Nevada. Look at the world I have conquered. I've won every spin of the wheel. I get everything I go after. They ask me, how does it feel? I tell them that I trade the moon for a string with an orange balloon. And the days when my only dream was a dish of vanilla ice cream.
I went to Las Vegas 12 months ago, and this is true, I was walking along the main drag, as they call it. That's their promenade, except they haven't got a tower. So I was walking along the main street in Las Vegas, and a young bloke comes up to me, sidles up to me, I had the corner of his mouth, he said, "Say, Bob, do you want to buy some hash?" I thought to myself at the time, what a daft thing to be doing, selling Irish stew in the middle of a desert.
In fact, In real terms, any comparison between Batley and Las Vegas is likely to end as a joke. Vegas was built to celebrate the fact that a fool and his money are soon parted. They don't happen to believe that in Yorkshire. Now, not surprisingly, Batley's success spawned many imitators. In the main, they were centred in South Yorkshire. It was all very flattering, and it may have seemed like the start of something big. In fact, it was the beginning of the end.
So you can say in a radius of 30 miles, you had 3 big clubs, and I mean big clubs. Batley, of course, the pioneer of them all. Then your Wakefield Theatre Club, and then your Fiesta Club in Sheffield. So it was pull, pull, pull till it was dog eat dog. And artists said, well, we'll come to this club, we won't go to that, but the money, root of all evil, dragged them. So therefore, then it was a battle for who were going to which club and for how much.
We were bidding for the artist. The artist would only work so many weeks, so the prices were getting higher and higher.
Some of the artists that were appearing there were asking such fantastic fees, and particularly the American stars, that I wondered where all this money was going to come from.
I never saw any great reason for trying to go to Wakefield, even though they always had a bidding battle.
And when the opposition, you know, sort of approached me, of course I didn't go, even though they offered me more money. I liked James Corrigan very much, and I was very happy to work for him. And nobody could take me away from him.
It's terribly important, loyalty in our business, and it goes both ways. In 1973, I got the best run in the business. I don't think anybody could ever top it. We started on August the 19th. I had 2 weeks with Johnny Mathis. I followed it with 2 weeks with Roy Orbison, 2 weeks with Martin St. James, a week with Mikey Harwood, a week with Charlie Williams, who was enormous in them days, packed the place. We followed on with 3 weeks for the first time with Daniel LaRue. Then with a week with the Drifters, 2 weeks with Freddie Starr, 2 weeks with Neil Sedaka, 3 weeks with Shirley Bassey. And it went on. And then even into January, we had a week with Tom Jones and a week with Gilbert O'Sullivan. Nobody had ever done that. We packed the joint every night. Every night was a packer. And then come March, we have a crisis with no money.
Well, it went in expenses. There was a lot of expenses. Once your business of that size starts losing money, you could lose. It was a gamble. You could make £10,000, £15,000 a week. You could lose £15,000 a week.
So I think the rot set in. After that, you've reached the top. I don't think I could have done any better.
Indeed, the punters got a little bit sort of bit blasé about it. It was lovely to hear them say, oh yes, you know, we had Louis Armstrong here last week, you know, they reckon Sinatra's coming, if he can, you know, if we can fit him in.
I remember originally it was all Sammy Davis Jr. and Louis Armstrong, and I mean everybody but Elvis, it seemed to me, was coming over to play it.
And it was very difficult, really, to keep a place like Batley going for 52 weeks in the year, because the emphasis at Batley was on who is the star. They had the Louis Armstrong, they had Tom Jones, Shirley Bassey was a great favourite there. And people would probably think, well, there's 10 weeks in the year, we'll see those sort of people. And the other 42 weeks, it's, you know, Vera Quigley or Gladys Hunt or somebody.
The audiences were dwindling, so I knew that the income was dwindling coming in, and I knew that they were living very, very high. So, yeah, I'd say I had an inkling that something was going to happen.
After playing Batley Variety Club so many times, I became aware of little squabbles that were going on between James and Derek and James and Betty, and there were ego problems, and there seemed to be some friction through the years.
So in the middle of 74, we parted company, and I went and took my own club in Leeds.
When he left, a table that used to seat 10 all of a sudden was being used to seat 16. And things were being taken away from the people that made the attraction of Batley not what it used to be before.
When you saw the downfall of Batley, it wasn't a quick death or anything like that. There was all the the intermediate things, the things that only an artist would notice. Like you'd wander into the venue and you'd have a drink at the bar. One thing we always noticed as the Grumbleweeds was, I don't know, the carpets would be sticky. They weren't hoovered that day. They weren't cleaned. The bar staff, it'd take you 5 minutes to get a pint instead of 2 minutes. You might notice the band had been cut from a 10-piece to 2-piece and one dancer.
I suppose there was a time when one felt that the whole thing was running down. The whole club scene had a fantastic boom. I mean, and you read stories of phenomenal prices paid to top-class artists, and I suppose the Americans came in on that one strongly. But there was a sensation, I think. I'm not that sensitive to these sort of things, but I did get the feeling that towards the end, certainly our trips there, that things were kind of running down.
I came to live locally in Yorkshire, and I heard of like people who put their own tills, and one chap had his own till behind the bar, and he'd go to the till, ring it up, put all the money in, at the end of the night take the till off the bar, say thank you very much.
I have a very good friend in show business, and he always says to me, in every successful show, everybody's got to earn. He talks like it. Everybody's got to have a little bit. And the trouble with Batley was that everybody wanted a lot from Batley, and they weren't satisfied with just a little bit.
You can't concentrate. If you've got domestic problems, you can't run a business as large as that. It's impossible.
Betty wanted this and wanted that, and James wanted to please, so he gave way when he should have stood firm and said no.
I was amazed that they stayed together so long, because they were very nice together, but just, you know, one got a feeling.
I think it's not all one-sided. It's not all my ex-wife's fault. It's probably a lot to do with me as well. It's a business that I think a lot of marriages go wrong. Whether you're an artist or you're running a business like that, it's a very difficult business to be in, a married person. So I'm not blaming anyone for that.
Although it wasn't your business, you thought, jeepers creepers, that must have cost a lot of money. So you had an awareness, because you saw the side of things and the big house, and not as you worry about houses, that's a good thing, but when you go for the big 2 Rolls Royces, diamond rings, people say they're investments, but it's no good having them investments if you go into debt to get them.
Their kitchen was full of tins and packeted food and all that kind of stuff.
And right off that was the biggest cupboard, or it wasn't a cupboard, it was a room, the biggest room full of food I've ever seen in my life. It was like having your own supermarket. You open up the door and walk in there, and there were, instead of having cans of something, there were cases of cans of something.
Money was no object at all, and I suppose that really was the death of Batley Variety Club.
Yes, I made quite a lot of mistakes.
These mistakes culminated in the closure of Batley Variety Club in 1977. The business and James Corrigan were in financial ruin.
240.
The official receiver moved in, and anything that could be sold went under the hammer. Before long, the place was vandalized, and what hadn't been sold had been smashed to pieces. The Star dressing room lost its Las Vegas touch. Kitchens, which prepared 1500's Campion chips a night, lay idle and derelict.
The party's over. It's time to call it a day. They bust your pretty balloon and taken the moon away.
James and Betty Corrigan divorced, and each left the district.
It became, I knew it was a monster that took a lot of controlling. A great monster. I knew it was a monster, and I knew as soon as you relaxed or took your mind off it, the thing was going to turn around and devour you.
His heart was too big. He gave too much. And like most people who give a lot, when it's necessary to have something given back, people weren't there to give it. I think that was the sadness of Corrigan. too many people left when a great man was floundering.
Everybody knows now the story of the clubs. There are hardly any big clubs left anymore.
There doesn't seem to be anywhere at the moment for the variety people. This makes it so difficult for the newcomers and the young people to learn their trade. There's so few places left.
It is sad because there's nowhere to play, you know.
Waiting in the wings was Corrigan's one-time right-hand man, Derek Smith. Derek was possibly the only man in the West Riding of Yorkshire who believed that Batley could rise again. For 4 years, he planned and schemed to raise the money to buy the building. In the autumn of 1981, he reassembled the old team and set to work.
We've got a new name now, the Frontier. I'll be very honest, I pinched that name from Las Vegas. I think it's a fabulous name because the Frontier is the boundary.
On the night of the reopening, only one man was missing.
I am delighted you are opening the club, and I am sure that if anyone can make it a success, it must be you. A success that you so richly deserve. You were a very big part of the magic and success of the Variety Club, and when you left, part of the magic went with you. I would like to take this opportunity to wish you and your associates, staff and patrons all the very best of luck and health in the future. I remain, as always, your very dear friend, James Corrigan.
Let's hope it reaches the same heights again. Whether it does or it doesn't, there's lots and lots of wonderful memories that I suppose to treasure all my life.
It's great to be back home. Nice to see you. Hey, hold on a minute, hold on. Let's get job right now. Let's have a look round, see if there's any immigrants in. No, we're all right now. You can understand me. I'm back home. I've been down south a lot, missus, and they don't understand me down there. No, I know.
So the building that was once the proud and successful Batley Variety Club has a new lease of life. Whether it regains its former glory or not, only time will tell. But what of the rags to riches to rags story of James Corrigan? Well, he's a new wife and a new life in the south of England. Will he, like the building he created, have another go at show business?
That is a mystery at the moment. I've not quite decided.
Corrigan did more for nightlife in Great Britain than anyone. It's impossible to rate him. I would put him with the great showman.
I don't think that there's another club like it, or will be another club like it.
What was special was, of course, James Corrigan. You know, he made the whole thing happen. He was special.
If he hadn't have done it, I'd probably be in a better position than I am today.
No, you must wake up. All dreams must end. Take off your makeup. The party's over.